Man, Ryan, it's been a while. We're back on Listen Up, presented by Dempsey's in Sportsland, and we're coming on right after the UConn and Seton Hall game, and we'll get right down into it like always, Ryan. I think that this was a bounce back game for UConn as they come away with the victory. We expected this a blowout. I think it's important to say over the break, they took the Thanksgiving break and they come off with a loss against South Carolina, although they're number one overall. And we'll go over the AP poll after we get done recapping this ball game. But anyway, UConn Huskies win it, Ryan, easily 74-49 against the Seton Hall Pirates. Seton Hall moves to 3-3 on the year, 0-1 in the conference. And then, of course, UConn goes, improves to 4-1, and they're 1-0 in the conference. Ryan, I just want to talk to you very quickly about this. I think this is just safe to say. Before coming on, I'm glad you reminded me. You earlier today, you're like, "Okay, Phil, are we going to go on tonight?" I'm like, "Why are we going on?" You said the UConn game. They're back after a long break, so I think it's important to see them bounce back. And not only, obviously, you're going against an unranked school, but even if it was a ranked school, I think it was very important to see Ariema's girls step it up in this ball game and prove that they're not a team to be, forgotten. Like
Right. Right.
we were panicking just after that one loss.
Yeah.
But again, I think they come out and they show what they had to show. Although again, against Seton Hall, we didn't really expect them to lose this game. But again, you put up 74 points. I think that's big.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to remember Seton Hall is not a very good team, right? And they've kind of struggled all season long with shooting the ball, and they struggled again tonight. Looking at the box score here, they Seton Hall shot 28%. You compare that to the Huskies, they shot 50% again. So it's really been the story for me about this Huskies team all season long is how well they've shot in the ball. And the past couple games, they've shot the ball even better, like 60%. So it's
Yeah.
pretty impressive what Coach Ariema's team is able to do. And Paige Bueckers, again, 23 points, 7 assists, 9 rebounds, 5 steals. I mean, she led it in almost every single category for the UConn Huskies and 0 turnovers as well. She did that in another game this year. So she was impressive yet again. Like you said, we expect this game to be a blowout. But I do agree with you. This was a very important game for the UConn Huskies, a bounce back game for them. They had that tough loss against South Carolina, the number 1 team in the country. So after that long Thanksgiving break, they come back on December 3rd and they get the job done. And this was an important conference game for them because now they're undefeated in the conference. So it's a big conference game, and good for them to get the win over Seton Hall.
Yeah, I was going to originally come on and say, okay, Ryan, well, this was another game where you call it the Paige buckets show.
Yeah.
Another game where she led in all three categories, but it actually was not. Although she did lead in points, she contributed 23 on 11 for 18. You said it on her field goal attempts. She didn't go to the line for any free throws. I'm looking here; she didn't make any free throw attempts in this game. And then Bueckers led in assists with 7. But I wanted to point out, you said it was a transfer, and I'll leave it up to you to go over a little bit about this player. First name Dorka. I'll just leave it at that. She's actually born in Hungary, 6'5", senior. So that's big because it's list. She's listed here as a senior. So when you
Yeah.
pair this girl up now with Paige Bueckers, only second year player, and you had to imagine. I mean, I always have respect for Ohio State. No matter what that's their football program, basketball, they're always good. It seems like in any sports that they're women's basketball, men's, they're always. It seems like they're always that school's always in the top 25 in every athletic, every sport that there is at that school. But yeah, I didn't even realize until you said it. So I mean, yeah, and again, I just see it now. She's a senior coming over with UConn. It just seems like Gino always has that that trick up his sleeve to just bring in this talent nonstop. I mean, whether it's And of course, you saw where they struggled against South Carolina, and now they bring Dorka in, a experienced senior. He knows what he has to do come March to compete against teams like South Carolina and so on.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has an eye for talent. That's why they're so good every single year. Oh yeah, Dorka's a transfer from Ohio State. 10 rebounds off the bench and contributed 5 points. So that's huge for this Huskies team. On Wednesday, I saw a notification on my phone about Azzy Fudd is out 2 weeks with an ankle injury, I believe. So that's going to be a huge loss for the Huskies. Probably she'll be back what December, 15th or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So going into these conference games, having that depth on the bench is huge, and she can definitely provide that for this team. 10 rebounds, 6'5". Talking about the experience level, like you said, with her being a senior. Azzy Fudd, she had 20 plus minutes in every game except that game against South Carolina. I talked about that after that game. But yeah, I mean, she was just a huge part of this team. But it's the next player up mentality. That's what makes this team so good about the Huskies is they're always so deep with talent. They get the almost the best players every single year, and that's why they're able to go so far in the tournament and have such great records every single year. But yeah, it's huge for this team.
it is. And to watch Paige Bueckers, I mean, for people that just doesn't, I mean, you have to try to help me out here, explain it, Ryan. For people that watch this podcast and watch us talk about the sports, it's just like even if you're not into basketball, it's hard to like. How do I explain it to these people, Ryan? Like, even if you don't watch basketball, she's still a must-see act of pure talent. I mean, so it's one of them things where it comes along once in a lifetime, and I just can't wait to see. I know this is only your second year at UConn, but I can't wait to see what comes after this because, like you already said, I imagine that she'll get drafted.
Oh yeah, you have to imagine so. And the first last year, first freshman to win the best AP poll player, so or AP poll player of the year rather. So it's pretty incredible what she did last year as a freshman, and to continue that into this season so far. I just expect her to only go up and up and up. It's really incredible what she does, and even if you're not a UConn fan, you just have to watch and respect her, and really see and how much talent that she has. And I would expect her to go number one barring any injuries or anything like that. But yeah, she's really a unique player, and like you said, once in a lifetime talent. She just has some things that you just can't teach a player.
Paige Bueckers, a name to remember for sure. Let's go over the box score very quickly, Ryan. It was a close game at the end of the first quarter, 17-16. Actually, believe it or not, Seton Hall was up by a point. I don't know if you caught any of the game tonight. Seton Hall was up by a point over UConn. So shout out to the head coach and Seton Hall for actually keeping it close there for a while. We know how hard it is, right? But after that second quarter, they pulled away. Connecticut scored 23 in the second quarter compared to Seton Hall's 6. And then they scored, Connecticut scored 14 in the third and 21 in the fourth. But again, I understand unranked school. We say that over and over. But again, just shout out to UConn again for the great defense. We talked about they wanted to come out and make a statement. They did. They allowed 17 points. Again, they were down a point, surprisingly, by the end of the first quarter. But I like how you saw the numbers dip in the second, third, and the fourth quarter. They only allowed 6 in the second, 13 in the third, and then 13 points in the fourth.
Yeah, I mean, we know this UConn team can score, but for me, throughout the whole entire season, it's going to be about their defense. And, like we mentioned before, I think the height difference really is big for this team. When you have players 6'5" coming off the bench and just grabbing rebounds and being able to block shots and stuff like that, it provides a huge boost. But Really for Seton Hall, Lauren Park Lane, the junior guard.
I knew,
She's been
I knew she would
yeah
give them
scoring a
trouble.
lot for this
Yeah.
team. Yeah,
I'm
that's why
glad
I
you
put her
pointed
on
her
the
out. She's from
yeah
Wilmington,
that's why I
Delaware.
put her on the thumbnail because
Yeah.
she's really been the scoring leader for this team
She's a
most of
junior.
the season.
Yeah, and she's only 5'6". That's not
Yeah.
that tall for basketball. So again, Lauren Park Lane, that's another talented player to keep your eye on. Very, my opinion, very underrated. I'm not just saying that because of the school she's at in at Seton Hall, but again, you'd be surprised, and I know that, and I know you already know this, but for some others, Ryan, that aren't familiar with, that's how sports work, right? I mean, sometimes obviously you get the major talented players out of the big schools like Paige Bueckers, but there's some hidden gems. There's some hidden gems, man, and you always want to say it. Tom Brady, he was hidden in that draft, and somehow, some way, they took a chance on him. But yeah, I think that this is a player to keep your eye on if you're a huge fan of women's basketball, man, and not just because she scored 20 and led Seton Hall with the loss tonight, but again, Lauren Park Lane only stands at 5'6", and boy, I tell you, she knows how to play some bad. She's coming in. She was tied 39th, I guess, in the league, and she's averaging about 19 points a game. So that's not too bad. She still has a year left if she continues, if she chooses to stay with Seton Hall her senior year.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And I think that's what makes the NCAA March Madness tournament so exciting because when you have these smaller schools, get into the tournament playing these bigger name schools, and when you see, these teams go on runs and make and beat these bigger teams, you really get to watch these players that you've never heard of before putting up these big numbers, and they get all the attention. So it's really special to watch come March Madness time to really find hidden talent. And I'm sure that's the NBA, WNBA, and NBA draft scouts. They look for those kind of things, and that's why they're always watching for the hidden talent.
That's right. When you take a look at the next matchup, Ryan, let's take a look at the next matchup. Again, tonight it was 74-49, Connecticut over Seton Hall. Let's take a look at the next matchup for Connecticut, and that is December the 5th, Ryan. Um, and that's just in 2 days. That's what is it? This Sunday, actually, at 12 o'clock. This is a game, actually, every game you want to keep your eye on, but I have a feeling that you're probably most likely pretty hyped for this one. UConn finally faces, other than, I mean, they did face South Florida, which was ranked 13, number one, South Carolina. It doesn't get much better than that, number one and number two schools. But again, you have one of them more exciting matchups coming up, and that's Notre Dame. They're ranked at number 24, Ryan. What do you see in this ball game coming up? Do you see any issues with Ariema's girls? Does Notre Dame cause any disturbance in stores on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean Notre Dame's 7-1, and their only loss was in overtime to Georgia. So they're definitely pretty good. Right? Other than that, they could be undefeated. So South Florida was a very good team, and we saw UConn how they struggled in that fourth quarter against South Carolina. So
Yeah.
I think it's obviously every game is so important, but UConn, with the conference that they're in, they don't really get a chance to play these bigger name schools, and they don't really play a lot of ranked schools
Mhm.
in general. So it's going to be a huge game for them. Notre Dame's an out of conference school. They are home, so that should help them out a little bit. But yeah, I think it's going to be a huge game. But I know Paige Bueckers obviously show up, but I think for them going on that huge break, and we saw when they were in that tournament, the Battle for Atlantis tournament, they had to play 3 games in a row. So, I'm looking to see how the energy level is for the UConn Huskies having to play. They only get a day's rest, and then they're back to work again. So in that tournament, I think we began to saw them getting a little tired when that game was coming down to the stretch against South Carolina.
Mhm.
They go on this huge break, and they have to play they only get a day's rest. So I'm hoping that the UConn Huskies team will bring energy, and they'll be able to finish the game off.
Yeah, and keep an eye on head coach for Notre Dame. Um, It looks like that pretty much that program runs off of obviously not a lot of split time between players, but what I was saying is because Maya Dotson in that last game that Notre Dame had 76-71 win Notre Dame over Michigan State. That was actually yesterday. It looks like that Maya Dotson got 31 minutes in that game. But, I mean, you're looking at a lot of these players. A lot of the starters really are putting in. Olivia Miles led them all, I think, in points with 11. And, I mean, she played 31 minutes. Um, Dara Mabry had 32 minutes. Maddie Westbeld had 29 minutes played. So, again, I don't think it. Again, Notre Dame's so talented where they're not going to bring a lot of players off the bench. In this case, in this scenario, so again, I think these starters are very strong. And I think UConn. I'll be honest with you now. I'm predicting for the next game. I think Notre Dame can carry UConn into the third or fourth quarter. If UConn's
Yeah.
going to pull it away like they usually do, it'll probably come late in the third or fourth quarter. But I don't think you're going to see UConn, carry this game out and blow Notre Dame away in the first or second quarter. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I wouldn't expect this game to be an entire blowout by halftime. And that's why I said I think it's so important that UConn is able to finish the game strong, and Paige Becker is able to lead this team. And even if she's not, I mean, Olivia Nelson Adota, Elia Edwards, Kristen Williams, I mean, there's just so many players on this team, the three senior guards that are able to step up maybe when Paige Beckers isn't having the best night. So, I'm not really worried about UConn in this game, but yeah, I think they'll be able to finish it off.
And to wrap this episode up, presented by Dempsey's and Sportsland, let's take a look at the women's basketball standings. Currently, I didn't know this. I learned something new today. I looked because UConn never actually had a ranked number beside of them in the AP polls. And that's because they're tied. I never knew that. They're tied with North Carolina State at 2. So you have number 1 overall South Carolina, and then North Carolina State and UConn are both number 2. And then you have, they skipped 3. Obviously, there's no 3. And then number 4, Stanford. Let's take a look at the top 10. You have number 5, Baylor, number 6, Indiana, 7, Arizona, 8, Maryland. We'll get into that one in just a second. 9, Iowa, and then 10, Louisville. Um, I just want to, again, I think that it's very important to see how UConn, maybe they jump a couple spots down, but then all of a sudden they're right back like top 4, top 3, right? It's because of that talent. And we know that's what I said. I think they had plenty of time, and you agreed with me. They had plenty of time to turn it around, get ready for March, because we know what's coming in March. We don't even have to say it. They just got defeated by that team, and they're number 1. They're number 1 for a reason. So I just think that it's important to see how UConn can make such dramatic jumps in these AP polls. I think it's because the Associated Press, the AP, the coaches, whoever makes these comes out with the rankings each week, they believe in Coach REM has been around forever, it seems like, and they believe in what he has. So it's definitely way too early to write UConn off.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like Alabama, right? In college football, they're always ranked so high, and it's because Nick Saban always has a good team. They're gonna have some of the best players. They play in the SEC, so much like UConn, they're always gonna have the players.
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect them to dip down, to the even they'll probably stay 1 and 2 the whole entire season,
yeah,
barring a major upset.
right.
But my Tennessee Vols, they're 11th. They got a big win. So that they're moving up. Louisville is another team. We mentioned that UConn's gonna have to play later down in the season. I think South Florida, they were creeping up there. They were at 13, but they had a tough loss earlier this week, so they'll probably drop back down again. And Maryland, like you said, they dropped down a little bit. They had a couple tough losses. They had
Well,
to
that
deal with
tournament,
the
I think that tournament really did them in because you
yeah.
sent me there. Of course, they had the first loss of the season. You're like, Phil, they lost for the first time. And I'm like, oh man, I think it's tough because even we talk about football, but even in basketball, one loss one loss counts like 2 or 3 losses. It really does. So it's tough on these college players.
Yeah, I mean, Maryland's a good team. I'm sure they're going to bounce back. But yeah, in that tournament, I believe they only had 7 players that they were able to play. They had an injury. They were dealing with, I think, a couple players had COVID. So that was a tough stretch for them.
Yeah.
But, they were able to pull through. I think they got a win over another ranked team. I forgot who they beat, but, they had to play NC State. They had a tough schedule during that tournament. But I don't think they'll drop below the top 10
Well, I mean,
throughout the whole
previously they were
season.
2. So I mean, they
Yeah.
to go from 2 to 8, that's a big dip.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant drop. Yeah.
That's a big drop. All right, Ryan. Well, I tell you what. So again, we went over Maryland. Speaking of Maryland, did you see where Mark Turgeon he left after 10 plus years with the Maryland men's basketball team? I found that kind of odd. I'm not too sure what the storyline is behind that, or if there's any at all. But I just maybe something will come out later on in the next couple weeks ahead. But I found it very odd that he stepped down in the middle of a season, considering how long he's been there, and then obviously the big contract that he was under with Maryland. But Mark Turgeon is done.
Yeah, I don't think it's very surprising to me that he left, but it is surprising that he left, in the beginning, or, the season's just started, but surprised he didn't leave during the off season. It took him a couple games to decide what he was going to do.
Mm.
But the Maryland men, they're kind of up and down. They're always in a tournament, but, they always get like the 10 or 12 seed. So,
Yeah.
they kind of have a tough road. They're always kind of the middle of the pack. So, I know a couple Maryland fans in our family were kind of fed up with Mark Turgeon. I know a lot of Maryland fans wanted him out. So I'm not really surprised that he left. Hopefully Maryland can find the coach that'll put him in more zones, and Mark Turgeon, I think some of the problems that he had was he didn't adjust during the game, and I think that made Maryland fans really frustrated because we can coach from the couch really really well, but it's just that Maryland struggled throughout the whole entire game. And I think Maryland fans were just sitting there like, they don't make any adjustments at all during the game, and just to sit there and watch them lose and call the same plays over and over. So maybe this will allow Maryland to get a fresh start now.
I don't know. I just hope that all the way back when I graduated high school, when they had Des Wells, when they had it seemed like the program was just building up to, and they were really starting, like Nick Faust, I think that's who it was, if I remember right. Seth Allen, and then they had the big man. I know you remember Jake Lehman. I don't know, Ryan. It's of course, yeah, Jake Lehman is he led them back then, and that was back in like 2012 or 13, somewhere around there. But I just think that hopefully hopefully I'm wrong on this one, but with Mark Turgeon gone, hopefully this is not a spill off, and all of a sudden this is like a total rebuild for years to come. Like, yeah, but hopefully they still get some pretty good prospects out of high school. But we talk about the East Coast always, high school, college, I don't know about NBA, but as far as we'll go as high school and college, I mean, they're always strong, always strong in basketball. So I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, I think you're right. I mean, they had a chance to be in the Final Four or the championship game, with him, but it just seems like that they always somehow fell short.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing in any college sport is recruiting, and all about how many connections your head coach has, and being able to recruit these big time players. And when you start building your name up, that's really important to players, because most of the time these high school players don't only come to the school because they're good, but they come because they want to learn from the coach, the best coaches. And we saw in college football, Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, and he's going to fill that LSU spot. So we'll probably see a couple players from Notre Dame, probably go to LSU now. So it's really all about the head coach and the connections. That's a huge part in the recruiting process, and really any college sport.
Yep. All right, we'll leave it off right there, and we will promise you all that we will try to get back on Ryan next game Sunday. Notre
Yeah,
Dame
for sure.
Fighting Irish. It'll be a tight one. It's the Huskies and Fighting Irish on Sunday.